just dozens. And obviously all of the staff here ran to the emergency room you see behind me, which is a secured space, which is a reinforced space, as one would imagine an emergency room would be in a city such as this one. And in another surreal kind of way, just watched the television reports and the smoke outside of what we were experiencing ourselves with our own ears and with our own bodies. And that's what happened.
Owen, we are also hearing that sirens have gone off in Zikim, Yad Mordechai, other parts of the south as well. We saw on our screen smoke billowing from around Ashkelon. You are there yourself right now. Any idea, and realize this is an unfolding situation, any idea of the extent of injuries? What are you seeing
we're on
in
the move again. There are more sirens, so I'll...
And as
well,
we
listen,
are
first, let me get in front of the camera. We're going inside right now. Yeah, there's a siren. I'll try to face you guys so you can see me. But the short answer is no. Obviously, we're too busy running from the sirens to know what's going on across the city outside. But anyway, we'll set up now that we're inside. But you can see around us all of the staff, medical staff, members of the military here as well, members of the media, of course, others here to help, volunteers who put food out. But listen, obviously it's an operation. I can feel buzzes in my pocket, obviously, from the red alert sirens and alerts that we get on our phones. But look, obviously Hamas has decided to target this city. This city is, I believe, around 10 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, about 6 or 7 miles from the Gaza border. It's had bitter experiences with rockets in past rounds of conflict. Of course, this one, as we all know, is quite different. But the feeling, I'm sure, for those here, much the same. This hospital, by the way, has taken in hundreds of injured. This is one of the closest hospitals to those frontline communities in Gaza where the massacres happened in the opening days of the war. So the staff here has dealt with the patients, with the families. By the way, what we can say on overall, in terms of the situation at hospitals in the country, Benita, is there were 2,800 injured, or have been 2,800 injured since the start of the war. About 500 are still in hospitals, only one in critical condition, this according to Israel's health ministry about 3 hours ago, and another 100 or so in serious condition. So the numbers have gone down. People have been thankfully released from the hospital. Of course, there may be some who weren't able to recover, but the numbers are down, but still obviously a lot of activity. And as you see, working under very difficult conditions of the sirens and of the running for shelter that have become, sadly, a part of the Israeli experience, and even more a part of the experience here in Ashkelon as well.
As you say, Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon has been exceptionally busy since the start of this war on Saturday. What kind of facilities in terms of underground options or shelters are in place there, not only for people around where you are, but for patients as well in critical care?
Well, listen, this emergency room is reinforced. We're here during the siren because this is a safe space, right? This is the reinforced space. And therefore we can... I think we will start to head back out. Yeah, it's, again, surreal. I'm looking at the television screen and Israeli media coverage with the blast sirens in Ashkelon and the picture of the city's skyline. Of course, we're here. We just experienced it. At any rate, we'll walk backwards and get back to our position. But listen, the space we were just in is reinforced. It's meant to be safe from rocket fire for obvious reasons. Obviously, a hospital emergency room will be a priority. Benita, back to you.
Fortified or not, you take care out there. Senior correspondent Owen Alterman at Barzilai Hospital in southern Israel. We will be going back to him in Ashkelon for regular updates. Now we go to our correspondent Pierre Kloschendler. He's in Kfar, and that is where we were going to be getting an update, because not only did we see the most horrific images earlier on in the afternoon where the Israeli army has allowed foreign media to come in to get a sense of how severe the recent massacre was. And we saw it on our screens a little earlier. We saw that 40 children and toddlers had been killed, butchered in that gruesome attack. And just a short while ago, sirens also sounding in Kfar Aza. So for more on this development, we now welcome to studio again, Avi Pazner, former Israeli ambassador to France and Italy, and our correspondent, Guy Azriel. Avi, it is such a mortifying, traumatizing time in the country right now. Over and above the fact that in Tel Aviv, millions of people have risen to shelters, have had to race there in the past few hours, including just a short while ago. Talk to us about the images that we saw out of Kfar Aza, the heartbreak, the pain, the horror, the brutality.
You know, Benita, it doesn't happen to me often that I'm almost speechless. When I saw the picture, I mean, we did not see the most gruesome picture. The picture still stronger. It reminded me of the poem of our national poet, Chaim Nachman Bialik, who wrote a poem called Be'ir HaRega, in the city of death, after the pogrom in Kishinev, when the poem shows the little bodies of the children and the women scattered in the streets. What the Hamas has done is a deadly pogrom against, not only against the people of Kfar Aza or Be'eri, but against the Jewish people. And this will not be forgiven. And this will call for a revenge. Usually we don't use these words. We use more moderate words, more diplomatic words. But here it calls for revenge. And those in Gaza who danced in the streets and applauded and gave all kinds of sweets and chocolate to the fighters who came back, they will pay the price. They will pay the price of what their leader did and what their terrorists did. And this is the only answer we can give to the horrifying scene of children and babies and women and men slaughtered like sheep and like cattle.
These images were so horrific to digest, so much pain. Let's find out more, difficult as it is to discuss. We go to our correspondent, Pierre Kloschendler. He is in Kfar Aza. And Pierre, the nation digesting what has been revealed, these images of children who were slaughtered and butchered inside Kfar Aza on Saturday by Hamas terrorists. Tell us what is happening there right now.
We can't go inside because there's fighting going on. There's ongoing fighting all around Kfar Aza, between Kibbutz Kfar Aza and Kibbutz Saad. So we cannot enter, and the rescue workers from the Zaka humanitarian organization cannot enter in order to retrieve the corpse. But what we're being told is that there are 200 corpses laying on the ground or burnt. And out of them, it seems 40 infants and children. 200 corpses out of a population in this kibbutz of 765. It's almost a third of the population of this kibbutz. Now, when the rescue operation will start again in order to retrieve the corpse, they will be placed into those refrigerated trucks that Dean Barenboim, our cameraman, is showing you. I counted 5.
It's dangerous,
there, we're being told that it's dangerous to go here.
No, don't go
because there seems to be
4 kilometers from here. Something happened. All right.
Okay, what happened?
We don't know yet, but if you want to be safe, stay here. Okay, we don't know yet.
Okay.
All the time, things happened here. All right, it's not a safety place to be here. Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Please.
Thanks.
For your safety.
So you see, the situation is very volatile. There are trucks like this one and another one here. I've counted 5 refrigerated trucks that are going to go inside once the situation calms down and the fighting finishes, and they will go inside the kibbutz and they will start carrying the corpses inside it. Now, they will be sent to the Forensic Institute for identification, and then the family will be notified. It's already 3 days since the onset of this war. On the way to the entrance to Kfar Aza, I've seen 2 corpses of terrorists with white ribbons around them. They're rotting, but nobody wants to take them because they might be booby-trapped. That's why the bodies of the terrorists are still lying on the ground. Now, for the residents who died they might be booby-trapped as well. So the evacuation of these victims is a very hazardous work. It's a very, very painful task and also very dangerous. Benita?
It's difficult to comprehend the scale of what you are explaining to us. 200 bodies out of a kibbutz population of 765. Incomprehensible. And what we're hearing from our colleagues from earlier on in the day is the severity, how gruesome, how large scale the attack was in that kibbutz. Is there any more detail on how it actually happened? How did terrorists manage to access a kibbutz and get to so many people? What more is known about what unfolded, Pierre?
Well, I only know from very general terms by soldiers who are keeping very laconic at this moment. Fighting is ongoing. There were waves of terrorist squads that stormed the kibbutz, about 70, maybe more, just for that kibbutz, for a population of 765 who is basically unarmed. There is a storage room for weapons, but those weapons were stored, like in every other kibbutz in the vicinity. And as far as I understand, when they were under assault, they had first to go to that storage in order to retrieve the weapons and then start fighting. And I don't know really the details about what happened. But the army, as far as I know, entered Kfar Aza yesterday at around noon. So there was ample time for the terrorists to slaughter the people, I think. But that's only the word of one soldier. You know, I don't know how true that is.
It's too much, Pierre. It's just too much to try and make sense of everything that is unfolding, of the gruesome details that are coming out of Kfar Aza. There is a situation unfolding, as you discovered, right close to you. Please get to safety, and we will come back to our correspondent, Pierre Kloschendler, for more updates from Kfar Aza. Thank you, Pierre. Difficult to comprehend. Still with me in studio, former Ambassador Avi Pazner and our correspondent Guy Azriel. And as we hear that more sirens are sounding in the region of Ashkelon, we know about the barrage earlier on. I want to get your reaction, Avi Pazner, to what we just heard and to what we have just seen coming out of Kfar Aza. The scale of the situation and the temperature on the ground, how angry people are, how much pain, and how you understand the international community is likely to respond to those images that we just saw. The pain is real.
The pain is real, and I must say that until now, the international community shows understanding to what we have suffered and what we are going through. You know, I am used many years. I'm on this kind of operation, and I have never felt such sympathy towards Israel like we have now. I know that it can change. I know that if images from Gaza are difficult, it may change. But for the time being, and I'm over-flooded by calls from people, and I see on foreign television, everybody loves Israel, but we do not love. We do not like that kind of love. I don't want to be loved because we are killed. Okay, and Benita, we have now an opportunity to get rid of the Hamas, and whatever it takes to get rid of them. You know that for years now, we went through 5 wars with the Hamas. In 2008, in 2011, in 2014, in 2021, and now. Stop it. I mean, we have now the possibility, because of what they did, because of this cruelty, this horrible cruelty that they showed, we have now the possibility to get rid of them, and the world will understand.
Will the world understand, Avi? Because we're just hearing that the UN Human Rights Chief is condemning, wait for it, the siege of Gaza.
You should go to hell. I mean, who is he to condemn? What does he know? You know, this committee has been an anti-Israeli forum for years and years and years, and we cannot expect anything from them. No, but you have to look at the reaction of the United States, of President Biden, of France, President Macron, of Sunak in English, of Scholz in Germany. So, this commission is completely non-important. Don't expect anything from them. We have now to do what we have to do. And again, I repeat it, and I will repeat it. Now we have to get rid of the leadership of the Hamas, of the whole leadership of the Hamas, and dismantle the heads of the Hamas so that we can live in peace and security in this country.
Certainly difficult to make sense not only of the images that we're seeing, but also the range of reactions as you are describing. We wait to see if the Human Rights Council from the UN condemns the images we just saw, the slaughtering and butchering of civilians.
The bottom line,
Israel.
if I may, is that Israel needs to focus on what it needs to do and not on what the world says.
Of course.
I'm going to stop you right there, and let's find out what Israelis can do right now. We go to Rabbi Dov Lipman, the founder and CEO of Yad L'Olim. Thank you so much for joining us. Also a former Israeli parliament member in the Yesh Atid party. He joins us from Efrat. So, Rabbi, thank you very much for joining us at this traumatic and difficult time in the country. We are seeing these gruesome images. Sirens are sounding in several parts. Firstly, your take on exactly what is unfolding right now, your thoughts.
The first thing that strikes me is how Israelis, and all of us, I'm included, we're all still in a state of absolute shock. The scope of what happened, the degree of the savagery is so beyond our comprehension. The lack of understanding of how we relied so heavily on intelligence, on security apparatus, and how it failed us. And you see streets of Israel relatively empty, cafes and marketplaces that are usually hustling and bustling with people, and everyone still seems to be very much holed up in their homes. I went to a gym this morning in Efrat, and I thought people for sure would be there, and people are still in that state of shock. But add to it the fact that all the men, from basically 42 years and below, are out in the front, are out guarding cities. So there's this quiet, there's this shock, and there's also a bracing ourselves because we know that we're in this for the long haul, and on a certain level, we haven't even started yet in terms of the military operation. So it's a very tense and anxious time on the street in Israel.
I have a few seconds left. Very briefly, what can people who want to help do? What can people at Yad L'Olim do? Very briefly, please.
Absolutely. I'll just make it very brief. Reach out to us at yadlolim.org, YADLOLIM.org, and contact us. You can ask us what you can do, both in terms of hands-on volunteering, contributing financially. People all around the world are able to do so as well. There's been an unbelievable outpouring of people wanting to do something. We are helping both the Olim community and the diaspora community to do so. Yadlolim.org, contact us, and we will do our best to guide you and direct you in terms of playing your role in this effort.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Dov Lipman from Efrat. We appreciate you speaking to us. And as we're speaking to you right now, breaking news just in, we are hearing out of Ashkelon from that rocket fire, there has been a direct hit. Guy Azriel, what can you tell us very briefly?
It's a very heavy barrage on the city of Ashkelon. We're hearing reports and seeing some images of plumes of smoke at the Ashkelon Marina. No word of casualties at this stage. This is just the tip end of the marina, if this is what we're seeing. Hopefully everyone went to shelter.
Guy Azriel, Avi Pazner, thank you for being here on this Breaking News edition. Our rolling coverage continues. We end it for now, but do stay tuned. I'm Benita Levine in Tel Aviv, and this is I-24 News Breaking News edition.
En 2013, j'ai assisté à deux naissances, celle de mon fils et celle d'I-24 News que j'ai rejoint au tout début de l'aventure. Alors bien sûr, en 10 ans, Il s'est passé énormément de choses en Israël et au Moyen-Orient. Mais si je devais retenir qu'un seul souvenir marquant de ma carrière de journaliste, eh bien ce serait cette interview exclusive que j'ai réussi à décrocher avec Nasser Bourita, chef de la diplomatie marocaine, le jour même où Israël et le Maroc signaient à Rabat les accords d'Abraham. Nasser Bourita, merci d'abord de nous accueillir et d'avoir choisi i24 News. On est en décembre 2020. Comme à son habitude, Donald Trump annonce le deal sur les réseaux et quelques semaines plus tard, un avion va décoller de Tel Aviv, destination Rabat. À son bord du beau monde, Jared Kushner, Avi Berkovitch et le conseiller à la sécurité nationale israélien, Meir Ben Shabbat. Là, je me jure de rentrer à la rédaction avec l'interview du ministre. Qu'à cela ne tienne, j'active mes réseaux et là, banco, le ministre donne son accord. Et puis voilà que les heures défilent, on est à l'hôtel, à Rabat, 1 heure seulement avant de décoller pour Tel Aviv, et le ministre ne donne plus aucun signe de vie. Alors je commence à désespérer, évidemment, et puis là, soudain, qui je vois débarquer, entrer dans le lobby de l'hôtel, eh bien le ministre, en personne, me fait signe de la tête pour me demander de le suivre, et en toute décontraction, il va prendre le volant de son véhicule et nous conduire jusqu'à son bureau, au ministère des Affaires étrangères marocain, où va se dérouler une longue interview de plus d'1 quart d'heure.
Le modèle marocain a inspiré les efforts de paix du Maroc.
Et c'est durant cette interview que le ministre va me révéler qu'en 2018, soit 2 ans avant les accords d'Abraham, eh bien il a rencontré Benyamin Netanyahou, c'était en marge de l'Assemblée générale des Nations Unies. C'est une énorme fierté d'avoir pu interviewer le ministre le jour même des accords d'Abraham. Être au bon endroit, au bon moment, c'est aussi ça, la force d'i24 News.
Esta semana en News 24 recorremos la ciudad histórica de Akko, que fue una ciudad importante durante las cruzadas y que hoy en día es una de las atracciones turísticas de Israel. Beit el Faraya, la Casa de las Mariposas, un lugar único en Akko donde mujeres musulmanas y judías se inspiran para cocinar y conectarse con el arte culinario. Marcos Ayala presenta en Israel el show Amor y Tango, un espectáculo pleno de virtuosismo, pasión y modernidad. News 24, el magazine semanal en español de i24 News.
Imagine being able to see into the future. We can take you there. Welcome to Israel Business Beat, your gateway to the captivating world of Israeli business and technology. Israel Business Beat, Sundays and Wednesdays, 9:30 p.m. GMT.
Israel is officially in a state of war.
This is a very active scene, and we need to get in the car as we're talking.
More than 100 soldiers and civilians have been kidnapped.
Help us, we don't know what to do. We just don't know anything.
Entire families, including babies and children and elderly, were butchered in their beds.
Awaken the giant, and we are ready and we are strong.
Everyone is showing up. This is the unity.
This is Breaking News Edition. I'm Benita Levine coming to you live from Tel Aviv, and it's breaking news. Sirens sounding yet again in Tel Aviv a short while ago. The third time a barrage of rockets has been sent towards central Israel in the past few hours. You are looking at live images on your screen right now out of Gaza. In Tel Aviv, millions racing to shelters. Red alert sirens also sounding in Holon, Herzliya, Petah Tikva and Bnei Brak earlier in the day. In the south, Storot, Ipim, Niram and Mifalsim also hearing sirens as the war intensifies on day 4. Now, earlier in the day, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching images, the release of horrifying footage, images of 40 children and toddlers slaughtered in the kibbutz of Kfar Aza on Saturday. The Israeli military is allowing foreign journalists to cover the scenes of the large-scale massacres by Hamas in towns on the border with Gaza. Our correspondent Nicole Zedek was there and filed this difficult report.
Here in Kfar Aza, they continue to remove some of the Israeli bodies that were killed during the massacre Saturday morning. You can see as 4 days later, they're still continuing to go through some of these houses in this very, very southern Israeli community and remove the Israeli citizens that were killed inside their homes, gunned down, stabbed, different grenades thrown off as well. As we're walking through this community, we're told that we have to stay away from certain areas, certain houses, because there could still be mines in them and they could go off at any moment. So all of the Israeli soldiers who are down here want to make sure that we're staying safe as well. But as you walk through this community, which we've been doing, just to pan around and kind of give you an example of exactly where we are, surrounded by all of these soldiers, many of them called from reserve duty, leaving their own families behind as well. You can see some of these houses that people were in. Meanwhile, the dead bodies of terrorists also continue to line the different grounds and parks in this surrounding area. Truly the scene of a massacre, as many of these people were just inside their homes, families. One of the commanders here said at least 40 babies were killed. Some of them, their heads cut off. He said he's never seen acts of brutality like this. And as I said, many of the soldiers were called from reserve duties coming down here to the scene of a massacre, none of them knowing exactly what to expect and no one expecting that it could be something like this. Even as I'm walking around right now, shell casings continue to line the grounds here, the community. Signs of daily life also. Children's bikes parked right here. Meanwhile, bodies lie right next to them. It's truly the scene of a massacre. The commander said this is not a battleground. This was Hamas terrorists coming into the community and killing all of the citizens that they could see. And so it's been a devastating cleanup effort as these soldiers continue to go through, and there's still an active threat from some terrorists in the area as well. In fact, gunfights and fighting between terrorists and the Israeli soldiers here just recently ended, and that's why they're continuing to go house to house and rescue and get all of the civilians that they can. Reporting for I-24 News, I'm Nicole Zedek.
Too horrific to comprehend, too horrific. For more in studio, we welcome Ambassador Avi Pazner, former Israeli ambassador to France and Italy and former world chairman of Keren Hayasod, the United Israel Appeal, and our correspondent, Guy Azriel. And before we get to the horrors that unfolded out of Kfar Aza, we have new breaking news, siren sounding in Ashkelon, and Guy Azriel, that comes on the back of a vow from Hamas that's exactly what happen at this hour.
Yes, as you expect. I think Israeli civilians who are very well trained already with both these threats and the actions of Hamas are aware, are used to this impossible reality. Well, you could say the Israeli government, the policy of the Israeli government that enabled it for such a long time has made the Israeli civilians so used to it. So a barrage right now of rockets towards the Ashkelon area, also towards Sha'ar Negev, Karmia, Zikim, Netiva Asara. We are seeing the skyline just over Gaza right now. That is in the city of Ashkelon, in fact. So with the smoke, I assume that is a smoke that is coming from Gaza, seen from the city of Ashkelon, of course, less than 20 kilometers north of the Gaza Strip. So yes, another barrage. We've seen 2 barrages of rockets into central Israel, including Tel Aviv, just over the past hour. More rockets towards Ashkelon right now. The Hamas is attempting to target the city of Ashkelon. The residents are used to running to the shelters. Hopefully they all follow the instructions and stay safe.
Well, let's see exactly what is happening in the south. We go live to our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman. He joins us from Barzilai Hospital. Owen, Hamas promised that there would be a barrage of rockets at this hour. They are delivering. What are you seeing and hearing there?
what do we experience here, Benita? We're not only at Barzilai Hospital. Barzilai Hospital is in Ashkelon, so we obviously experienced it ourselves exactly at 5 o'clock, as had been forecast, as had been promised, if you will. We just heard loud booms one after another. We lost track. Dozens, just dozens, and obviously all of the staff here ran to the emergency room you see behind me, which is a secured space, which is a reinforced space, as one would imagine an emergency room would be in a city such as this one. And in another surreal kind of way, just watched the television reports and the smoke outside of what we were experiencing ourselves with our own ears and with our own bodies. And that's what happened.
Owen, we are also hearing that sirens have gone off in Zikim, Yad Mordechai, other parts of the south as well. We saw on our screen smoke billowing from around Ashkelon. You were there. This is Breaking News Edition. I'm Benita Levine coming to you live in Tel Aviv, and sirens sounding yet again in Israel, warning of incoming rockets. This time, though, it's breaking news. Those sirens are sounding in the Western Galilee, in the north of the country, close to the border communities of Metzuba and Betzet. This happening just moments ago. Sirens sounding in the northern communities up close to the border between Israel and Lebanon. With me in studio, correspondent Guy Azrael. The location here is significant. Break down what's going on.
Absolutely. For such a long time now, well, at least since the start of this escalation, the start of this war, Israel is fearing the northern front to escalate as well. We've seen some rockets prior, and now it seems like a barrage of some sort towards the northern Galilee, an area that is in very close proximity to the border with Lebanon. And before we even finish reporting on that, already some unconfirmed report at this stage in Arabic media about an Israeli strike in Lebanon. We do not know whether it's an airstrike or artillery or some sort, but that would mean an immediate reaction to the source of fire. Israel is not going to let more rockets fly into Israeli territory without a response, and at the same time, a massive barrage of rockets towards the south, particularly towards the city of Ashkelon. Some hits there, one next to a building. No reports of any serious damages in terms of casualties. Also some rockets in the northern Samaria and the northern West Bank, also emanating from Gaza as far as we understand. So Hamas is obviously feeling rushed. Hamas is feeling the pressure. The IDF has really upped its bombardment of Hamas sites all over the Gaza Strip. Really, Israel is serving Hamas a very quick and powerful reaction to the atrocities that we just saw in these reports out of Kfar Aza from our reporters Nicole Tzedek and Pierre Kloschandler. Reports of gruesome killings, slaughtering of 200 residents
from the same kibbutz community.
Of the same kibbutz of just 750 people, including 40 children and babies. This is incomprehensible. This is something that Israel cannot allow to happen. Israel has allowed Hamas to thrive on its southern border for too many years. It paid a very heavy price. Israel is not going to be the same, and Israel is not going to allow this to happen anymore, be the costs as they may be when it comes to a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, dismantling Hamas, not allowing this threat to continue to thrive on its border, also risking the possibility of an escalation with Hezbollah in Lebanon, but that is a very similar threat. That is another terror group, much stronger than Hamas, unfortunately, with much more sophisticated missiles that could hurt serious infrastructure in Israel, precision missiles directly given by Iran, sponsored by Iran, to Hezbollah. That is the concern now on the northern border, as Israel is already engaged in this war against Hamas.
And just for some context, in recent hours, sirens sounding in the south, yet again, people racing to cover. And then just a short while ago in Tel Aviv as well, in central Tel Aviv, in cities including Herzliya and Holon as well, millions of people from the city racing to shelter. Those rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome missile defense system. What do we know, Guy, about the kind of defense systems in place up north?
Well, Israel has an array of missile defense systems, starting from the Iron Dome, Patriot missiles, and some other systems as well. Look, the Israeli systems, particularly the Iron Dome, has been saving thousands of Israeli lives literally on a daily basis this week, but also for the past 10 years at least, since it became operational. Obviously, the threat from Hezbollah is more severe, as it possesses much more sophisticated missiles, ones that are more difficult to intercept. We're also hearing now that the Israeli Security Cabinet is set to convene this evening at 7:30 local time, just less than 2 hours from now. Major decisions to make, both about the progress of the war and the expansion of this government, bringing in more partners in order to create this emergency unity government that would allow much greater backing for this government as it is engaged in the most serious escalation that it has seen since the Yom Kippur War exactly 50 years ago.
And in a new development just in, we are getting reports that there has been a hit in that rocket fire in the Western Galilee. We obviously are going to be clarifying firsthand, and to that end, let's go straight to our Middle East correspondent, Ariel Oseran. He's been up north in Nahariya. And now, Ariel, what update have you got about the developments we're hearing at the moment about sirens sounding in the Western Galilee? What can you tell us?
Right, Benita. So sirens were sounded in multiple border communities in the Western Galilee, such as Chanita, Shlomi. Reports of impact, no reports yet of how many impacts there were, if there were any injuries. Obviously, we're following this very closely, and the moment there are updates, we will share that with you. And also, in response to that rocket launch, the Israeli Air Force is striking in southern Lebanon. According to Arab media, the rockets were launched. Indeed, it's confirmed that they were launched from southern Lebanon, from the El Khalila region, which is near the southern Lebanese city of Tyre. And so while we know where the rockets came from, where they landed, we still don't know the damage that was caused, given this rocket barrage towards northern Israel, the first rocket barrage taking place today. We're here at the Nahariya Hospital, actually in the underground Nahariya Hospital that has been relocating itself since Saturday until now. They've been transferring different divisions, different departments and patients down here, expecting to be joined into the line of fire. These expectations obviously proving true yesterday and today. By tomorrow, about 80% of all hospital patients are expected to be relocated down here. And currently at the hospital, there are still 4 soldiers who are being treated, 4 soldiers who were injured in yesterday's border clashes with Palestinian Islamic Jihad fighters. One of them is in critical condition. He is in the ICU, not stable. One is in moderate condition, and 2 are lightly injured. That is the current situation here in the northwest part of Israel.
Ariel, the communities in the south of the country have been evacuated from many parts. Certain contingency plans have been in place for those communities who have been at the brunt of the rocket fire from Hamas in the Gaza Strip since the start of this war. However, up north, tell us more about the contingency plans right now, where those sirens have sounded in parts of the Western Galilee. What plans are in place for those communities close to the border with Lebanon?
Look, Benito, one of the main reasons these communities were evacuated is because there is substantial damage in many of these border communities along the southern border surrounding the Gaza Strip. I mean, you could see our reporters today, Nicole Tzedek and Pierre Kloschendler, showing the massive damage that took place there. And so it is very difficult for the residents to go back to those communities, but also, yes, indeed, given the fighting, given the massive barrages of rockets that are constantly being launched towards those border communities, that decision was made. That is not, however, the situation currently in the northern part of Israel and the border communities here. Indeed, 2 days of rocket launches, but it is not at the same scope. And so I think while there is the option of evacuation, depending on the development of the reality and on the ground, currently that is not the situation, and currently the border is still filled with tons of reservists, tens of thousands that have been called up in recent days. Many have been sent down south, many sent up north, and so my understanding is that at the moment that is not the decision that is being taken.
Middle East correspondent Ariel Osaran, live from Nahariya at the underground hospital. We will be coming back to you, of course, for more updates in the coming hours here on Breaking News Edition. Thank you very much for now to Ariel. And a little bit earlier on in the day in Tel Aviv, American families chose to speak out, asking for answers because they want to know what happened, that gruesome attack at the music festival on Saturday. Not only were 260 people at that festival gunned down, massacred by terrorists, but scores of people were taken across, kidnapped, and are being held hostage in Gaza. And those families want answers. Let's take a listen to their message earlier on in the day from Tel Aviv.
Sagi is the father, as you can see, 35 years old, the father of 2 beautiful daughters, and his wife is now pregnant with their 3rd daughter. Sagi is exactly the kind of son that every father would want to have. A leader, a friend, a loving man. He and many other such young men on the kibbutz are now missing after having tried to repulse the attack by evidently hundreds of Hamas terrorists and looters. Many died in the process. Sagi was not found, and we have heard or seen no trace of him since then.
Formal indication that we received from the IDF is that he is defined as missing in action. What does that mean? It means that nobody since Saturday morning has been able to physically locate him, identify him, and say that he saw him. It also means that he's not in the hospital. It also means that he's not on the deceased list that has been identified. You would think, it would be a good assumption to say, that after 70 hours, if he's not in the state of Israel, he might be some other place.
I normally don't use my phone on the Jewish Sabbath, but it was an emergency and I needed to know where my son was. So I turned my phone on, I believe at 8:23 in the morning. And when I turned it on, there were 2 texts in a row from Hirsch at 8:11. The first one said, "I love you." And immediately at 8:11 also it said, "I'm sorry."
My mom used the little bit of Arabic that she picked up working as a nurse in the hospital in Soroka for 20 years to calm down the terrorists. And it is our hope, which is a little bit ridiculous at this stage to say, but the optimistic scenario here is that she's held.
Unimaginable pain, families waiting for word on their loved ones. And now, breaking news just in, the death toll from the Hamas terror rampage in southern Israel, which started on Saturday morning, is now officially at more than 1,000. Breaking news, the death toll from the Hamas terror rampage in southern Israel, all starting at 6:30 on Saturday morning, the 7th of October, is now at more than 1,000. Correspondent Guy Azrael, what details can you share?
Insane numbers. This is the biggest tragedy in Israel's history, I can say now, more than the Yom Kippur War. One of the worst tragedies of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Entire communities, civilians, families, mothers, children, elderly, slaughtered in their homes. Innocent civilians slaughtered by this murderous Islamist, radical, ISIS, Nazi-like group of Hamas. And also right now, heavy exchanges of fire outside the city of Sderot, next to the kibbutz of Mefalsim. IDF forces are facing off against terrorists right there. So many other things that are happening at the same time. The rockets on the northern border from Lebanon. We can report between 7 and 9 launches from those launches, all of them hitting actually open areas. Also hits in Ashkelon, and a security incident in Jerusalem that we're still waiting to hear about.
Some 300,000 reservists have been told in recent days to get prepared for the eventuality of a large-scale operation. As we started this broadcast, a development up north. As we're speaking right now, sirens in Ashkelon. What exactly is the next move likely to be out of Israel? What are the options?
Look, there's no other option for Israel other than dismantling Hamas. That is the first priority now, because the reality cannot remain the same. Israel will not be the same after what has transpired on Saturday and in the following days. Hamas has declared a war on Israel. Israel cannot allow Hamas to continue to exist, a threat on Israel's border, just a mile away from Israeli communities that has thrived for so many years after Israel disengaged. I can remind our viewers there is no occupation, zero occupation in the Gaza Strip. Israel withdrew, disengaged from Gaza back in 2005, taking thousands of Israeli settlers out of their homes in hope for a better future for Gaza. What did the people of Gaza do? They elected Hamas. And this is the result. Hamas, a terror group that has invested all of the resources, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that Hamas has been getting from international aid, from European countries, from America. All these European countries need to rethink a lot their aid to Gaza, because all or most of that money went to funnel this attack of Hamas. All of that money went into sponsoring of terror, into rockets, into all the equipment that we saw in Saturday's attack. The result, over 1,000 Israelis killed, and that is just the beginning. Israel will have to put an end to this.
Egypt has officially closed the Rafah border crossing with Gaza. It means that the enclave is officially now sealed off. What impact does that have, very briefly, to what is likely to unfold in the coming hours and days?
Let's be very clear. Israel will not allow any aid to come into Gaza, whether the Egyptians want to do that, whether the Jordanians want to do that. No aid is coming into Gaza. Hamas is going to be stopped. Israel stopped any fuel coming into Gaza, any electricity, any water coming into Gaza. Hamas will pay a price. Unfortunately, the people of Gaza will pay the price as well.
Correspondent Guy Azrael, thank you for being here. A very difficult day, a very difficult 4 days in the country, the war between Israel and Hamas. If you're just joining us now, it's been Breaking News Edition. Sirens sounding just a short while ago up north in the Western Galilee. Up north in the Western Galilee, close to the border with Lebanon. Our coverage will continue, so stay tuned to I-24 News Breaking News Edition. Our team is out and about with all the latest developments, and our panelists of experts will remain in studio bringing you all the insight you need to know. That is a wrap for now from me. This is Breaking News Edition. I'm Benita Levine coming to you live from Tel Aviv. Our rolling coverage continues. Stay tuned. Laura is up next. This is I-24 News.
is at war. Since the early hours of the morning, Israel has been facing infiltrations of terrorists, kidnapping of Israelis, and a barrage of thousands of rockets emanating from the Gaza Strip, the biggest and bloodiest attack in years. Tune in for our extensive and rolling coverage of the Hamas deadly attack on Israel. With reporters on the ground, in-depth analysis, and most updated and accurate information, stay tuned with I-24 News.
Strictly Security, your weekly look into security, intelligence, and strategic affairs. Our team brings the latest on the major international conflicts, analysis of the major security issues right here in the Middle East and around the globe. Join us for a close look at innovative military technology and get up to speed with what's happening in cyberspace. Saturdays, only on I-24 News.
The Middle East is changing. Old alliances make way for new partnerships.
Bigger threats lead to new relationships, and shared goals mean new opportunities.
We speak to those who know the inside story.
Or those who are at the heart of the changes. Don't get caught up with the same old story.
Find out what's happening in Middle East Now.
Middle East Now, every weekday on I-24 News.
Hey, it's you again. Ready? Let's go. One show, a whole lot of perspectives.
He is part of the problem.
You want to talk about deplatforming?
People are losing their lives.
Not just what happened, but why does it matter?
I'd like to finish my point.
You're the one stretching terms here.
You could be a fantastic CNN reporter.
Join us every night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Global Eye. The global conversation starts here.
Imagine being able to see into the future. We can take you there. Welcome to Israel Business Beats, your gateway to the captivating world of Israeli business and technology. Israel Business Beats, Sundays and Wednesdays, 9:30 p.m. GMT.
If you could travel to the Middle East right now without packing and without a plane ticket, would you? We are in Tel Aviv, Israel. Welcome to I-24 News Digital.
Here, we bring Israel and the entire Middle East right to your social networks.
On your phone, on your desktop. Here, I-24 News creates videos especially made for social media. And believe me, we are out there working hard.
Right here.
Israel and Nepal.
For the very first time.
Is how they begin. Making original content. Streaming live, even in the hard moments.
There are literally rockets going off. I'm in a bomb shelter.
And filming docuseries. With us, you will find all the big stories you missed on television. So join I-24 News on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And discover the Middle East with us.
We're on the inside of political and religious passions in Jerusalem, breaking down the financial trends shaping the global economy, giving you key context, not just headlines. With the stories from Israel that touch the U.S. and those across the region with impact far beyond its borders. Sunday to Thursday on I-24 News. Catch the rundown, where the Middle East meets the world.
And welcome. You're watching I-24 News live from Tel Aviv. Hamas terrorists beheaded babies during a massacre in the southern Israeli village of Kfar Aza. Words I never thought I would have to say in a newscast, but that is where we are 4 days after the worst atrocities perpetrated against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Our reporter Nicole Zedek was among the members of the press taken to the village earlier today. Here is her report.
Here in Kfar Aza, they continue to remove some of the Israeli bodies that were killed during the massacre Saturday morning. You can see as 4 days later, they're still continuing to go through some of these houses in this very, very southern Israeli community and remove the Israeli citizens that were killed inside their homes, gunned down, stabbed, different grenades thrown off as well. As we're walking through this community, we're told that we have to stay away from certain areas, certain houses, because there could still be mines in them and they could go off at any moment. So all of the Israeli soldiers who are down here want to make sure that we're staying safe as well. But as you walk through this community, which we've been doing, just to pan around and kind of give you an example of exactly where we are, surrounded by all of these soldiers, many of them called from reserve duty, leaving their own families behind as well. You can see some of these houses that people were in. Meanwhile, the dead bodies of terrorists also continue to line the different grounds and parks in this surrounding area. Truly the scene of a massacre, as many of these people were just inside their homes, families. One of the commanders here said at least 40 babies were killed. Some of them their heads cut off. He said he's never seen acts of brutality like this. And as I said, many of the soldiers were called from reserve duties coming down here to the scene of a massacre, none of them knowing exactly what to expect and no one expecting that it could be something like this. Even as I'm walking around right now, shell casings continue to line the grounds here, the community. Signs of daily life also. Children's bikes parked right here. Meanwhile, bodies lie right next to them. It's truly the scene of a massacre. The commander said this is not a battleground. This was Hamas terrorists coming into the community and killing all of the citizens that they could see. And so it's been a devastating cleanup effort as these soldiers continue to go through, and there's still an active threat from some terrorists in the area as well. In fact, gunfights and fighting between terrorists and the Israeli soldiers here just recently ended, and that's why they're continuing to go house to house and rescue and get all of the civilians that they can. Reporting for I-24 News, I'm Nicole Zedek.
Nicole Zedek there, and yes, you can believe your ears. Babies were beheaded. 40 babies were murdered by Hamas terrorists during a massacre in that village. Many civilians killed, entire families burned alive. There have not been atrocities like this since the Holocaust. I'm joined in the studio by I-24 News senior editor Guy Azriel. And Guy, it is surreal, it's shocking, it's very difficult for people to comprehend what happened in the village of Kfar Aza. I don't think it's an understatement to say that this changes everything in Israel forever.
Israel will not be the same, Laura. This is a watershed moment, not just in Israel's conflict with Hamas in Gaza. It's a watershed moment in Israel's history. Entire communities erased. I personally know the kibbutz of Kfar Aza very well. A very lively, wonderful community, peace-loving people, wonderful people. So many young families, beautiful children slaughtered in the hands of these animals. It is incomprehensible for anyone. 40 children, over 200 people in the kibbutz. That's in a kibbutz that has just 765 residents. That's an unbelievable number, a third of the population there. And 1,000 Israelis killed. This is another number that we never thought we'll see. It's a number that we saw maybe in the Yom Kippur War or during a day of battle, but
not civilians.
Not so many civilians. It is incredible, and it hasn't stopped. We're hearing of more exchanges of fire happening right now, just outside the city of Sderot, next to kibbutz.
So there are still terrorists inside Israel?
There are still terrorists. It's difficult to say whether these were terrorists who are hiding or terrorists who are using the holes in the fence that are still there. There's also possible tunnels that we don't know of. The scale of this attack was immense. In many of these kibbutzes, there are dozens of Hamas terrorists on trucks loaded with so many heavy weapons. The residents in most of these communities had no chance. entire families, young families, meeting a group of armed terrorists, breaking into their homes, shooting at them, throwing grenades. In the very few cases where the families were able to lock themselves in the shelter, they set the houses on fire.
Entire families.
I'm sad to say this on air, but I will say it. I'm hearing testimonies from Barzilai Hospital of a couple, a mother and a father, who were found burned, attached to each other in one of those safe rooms in Kfar Aza. This is the reality. People were burned alive. Those who were not slaughtered by gunshots or by grenades or other means. As we heard from Nicole Tzedek, some of their heads were cut off as well. The brutality.
Something that ISIS didn't even do that.
I would compare this to Nazi-style hatred and brutality. This is not something that anyone in the Western world can and should understand. It's not something they would ever expect or comprehend. This is unimaginable. And these communities have lived next to Gaza for so many years, wanting better life for the people of Gaza. And this is the insane thing, Laura, because just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Israel wanted to expand the number of Gazans who enter Israel. I had a Gazan man in my home, working in my home. We want to give them work. We wanted to give them a better life. What we received from Gaza was the greatest massacre on Israeli civilians in history. It's something that Israel will not allow to ever happen again, and Israel will have to dismantle Hamas, whatever the price may be.
And let's talk about the IDF and what is happening now. The IDF is carrying out the worst airstrikes ever on the Strip right now. The territory is also without water or electricity, has been down, I think, for 24 hours. Nothing getting in, nothing getting out. This is the response that continues.
Yes, well, if Israel wants to dismantle Hamas, there's no other way to do this, and maximum pressure is the tactic, closing off all the crossings, of course, not entering any fuel, cutting off power and water, and bombardment of all these major Hamas sites, this terror group that continued to thrive for so many years next to Israel's border. Israel wrongfully thought that it could manage this conflict with occasional escalations with Gaza, with rocket fire that Israel contained. Israel used the Iron Dome that protected Israeli civilians. Well, that whole concept has proven to be a major mistake, because that monster only continued to grow with its power and with its appetite for Jewish blood, and we saw the results right now.
Guys, stay with us. We're going to go now live to Kfar Aza, where that massacre took place, where those babies were beheaded, where those families were burned alive. Our Pierre Kloschendler is there. Pierre, I mean, you're a reporter. You've been working for many, many years in journalism. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life?
Well, unfortunately, yes, but not to that extent. We are speaking about, according to the Zaka Rescue Organization, we're talking about 200 corpses in Kfar Aza, in different states, some charred, some with limbs cut off, heads cut off. That's what we're hearing from the Zaka Rescue Organization, and an officer from the Israeli army told us that this is a realistic number. There's a whiff of death emanating from the kibbutz when the breeze comes from the kibbutz to that direction, from the sea to here. Right now, there is a whiff of death. On the way to the entrance to Kfar Aza, there are two Hamas terrorist bodies that are signaled with ribbons from the Israeli police. They're still rotting under the sun, but it's not because of revenge. It's simply because there's a fear that they're booby-trapped, and the sappers are busy with also checking the bodies that the bodies of the victims are not booby-trapped. It's going to be an excruciating work to retrieve those bodies. You have 3 trucks, I've counted 5 of them, that are going to go in, retrieve the bodies, and then sent to the Forensic Institute for identification. It's going to be hard. Families are going to have to see the bodies. Some are beyond recognition, probably if they're charred.
It's tough.
The situation is still very volatile. There's still clashes. Soldiers are telling us that clashes are ongoing in and around Kfar Aza, not inside Kfar Aza, but around it. Just an hour ago, soldiers were rushed 4 kilometers away from here because there were such terrorists roaming the fields, and they went to try and eliminate them. Now, it's very difficult to evacuate those bodies under fire, but this is what they're being tasked to do. Soldiers and rescue workers. Many of the soldiers here belong to the reservist paratrooper brigade. They are also members of family. They also have children. They've been called up on Saturday. They came in yesterday. So the shock is immense. These are family members, family men. Now imagine, on Saturday when it all started, families were gathered together because the evening before, on Friday evening, there was a holiday supper and all the families were together and they slept together in the same apartment. It was so easy to kill them, so easy. Now, there is a storage with weapons, but it's in the storage. Nobody anticipated such a massacre. So when the 70 or so terrorists stormed Kfar Aza, they had first to retrieve the weapons for the storage room under fire. It was very difficult. They called the police, of course. I know personally a woman, she lost 2 of her parents. She lives here. She lost 2 of her parents here. She's remained here with her little brother. Batia?
Unbearable. Pierre, thank you very much. Pierre Clochender there in Kfar Aza. And very hard for everyone today, really. It's very hard. Over 1,000 Israelis have been killed. Many of the victims were slaughtered at a rave party close to the border with Gaza when the Hamas terrorists came across the border. We're joined now by Gal Bushban. Gal, you were at that rave party. Thank goodness you managed to escape with your life. Can you tell us what happened?
Hi. A miracle. Just a miracle. So many dead. It's unexplained. It's, just a minute before you wrote babies beheaded. Think who can think that is possible in 2023? It's just devastating.
Certainly medieval barbarity that we're seeing. There's no other words for it, Gal. Can you describe for us, I mean, this must be really hard to bring up these memories. Just a few short days ago, you were with your friends, you were with hundreds of young people just looking to have a party, have a good time. You were there, the hang gliders came in, the terrorists came in. How did you know what was happening? What was going through your mind? Did you understand what was happening?
So yeah, I will just explain them, like my perspective. We went to the party around, we arrived around 5 in the morning. It was amazing. It was an amazing festival. It was a known one. Everybody was happy, peace, love, enjoying the last day of holidays, Shabbat. And around 6:30, we just saw a bombardment of around 250 missiles coming in. Now, sadly, due to being in Israel, you are regular to that kind day-to-day bombs coming in. So the chaos didn't start there. It was there were no policemen telling us what to do, because the thing is, the police thought there was only the bombings and they didn't know about the terrorists. So that was one of the problems afterwards. So we decided to stay around the parking lot, just lay down. That's what you're supposed to do when there's bombs. Lay down with your hands on the head, just waiting off to calm down. And afterwards, we understand this is where your fate was decided. The people who left first, the people who were in panic and thought that bombs were going to hit us in the party, that are the ones who are dead on the roads, where terrorists just killed everyone. All the cars you can see with bullets and just bodies on the way. The ones who stayed last are the ones who got murdered and raped and kidnapped into Gaza. And luckily, it's just a miracle. It's a decision between friends on when are we going to head back to the center of Israel and leave the party. It's insane. There's no other word to describe how fate is decided by when do you go out of a party because it is attacked by terrorists.
Yeah, of course.
That was the first part. Yeah.
No, I just want to, I mean, this is really hard to ask you this, but there are some, Europeans, Americans who are trying to, people from around the world, I should say, who are on social media. They're trying to play down the rape aspect of this. They're trying to deny that there was any rape at the festival. You were there.
So I don't know 100%. But when you write babies beheaded, I think rape is less.
Yeah.
That's like how horrible it is. But if you behead a baby, what else can you do? It's like it's the worst thing I think people can do in this planet. After around an hour, after an hour from the missiles, we're starting to hear gunshots. We're all soldiers. We're all been in the army. I'm a combat soldier as well. I know that is an AK-47 coming in. We started to understand we need to choose if we're going to leave the car and start running. There is a video running in the internet where you see people just starting to run, and people are getting out of the cars and starting to run. I'm in one of those videos. You can see me starting to run. And that, I think, is where the chaos started. We just heard thousands of bullets coming around us. You feel people are shooting on you. I know that feeling. And it just felt like we're ducks, and people just fell down. And we ran around, 2 miles without looking back. We just looked for our friends. It was not each one for himself, but each one for his people he came with to the party. That is how it looked like. Each group of people. We walked around five hours until we got to safety. It's just horrible. You can't describe the understanding of me after an hour that the people who are left behind are probably massacred. Because we are starting to understand from the internet and from the policemen who did survive and went with us what is going on back there.
Yeah.
And people getting shot. My sister's husband was shot in his leg. I have friends who left the party in the beginning who are dead. I have people who I know who are kidnapped, girls. It's just unbelievable. I don't think it's not even 9/11. No. I'm American. And I remember 9/11. It's not even 9/11.
Gal, I'm so sorry.
Look at the video.
I'm so sorry. We're all trying to get our heads around it. It's absolutely abhorrent. Gal Bushman, I'm glad at least that you're back with your family and you're safe. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
All right, just an update there. More than 1,000 people were murdered by Hamas terrorists 4 days ago. There's been a massacre uncovered at a village, Kfar Aza, babies beheaded. I don't think I need to say more. Families burned alive, atrocities not seen certainly since the Holocaust. country very much in shock and trying to cope. Let's talk about how Israel's fighting back. Major General Eitan Dangotz is here with me. He's the former military secretary to 3 ministers of defence. Thanks for being with us, Major General. What is happening now? What is the IDF strategy?
First of all, I think it's the first day that I think there is a very clear direction that Israel stabilize the situation inside Israel, what is surround Gaza, and continues with its heavy strikes on Gaza in a change of doctrine that we know from the past. The principles has been changed. No more divided between Hamas and Gaza as a population of living. Today we are fighting against the state of Hamas, that it will be very clear to the international community. Secondly, there is increasing tension that is continued to climb up what's going in the north part of Israel, and while we are sitting here was a attack of rockets on the west area of the Galil Mountains from Lebanon towards Israel. As I know, thousands of rockets has been launched. It means that the narrow corridor that we entered concerning coming to escalation with Hezbollah as a Lebanon state, also to make it clear, is bringing us to a very sensitive, I may say, last 2 or 3 steps that will enter to 2 arenas of escalations between Israel and state of Hamas, between Israel, Hezbollah, and Lebanon. Besides, don't forget that we have all the time a very strong terror activity in the West Bank, and there is efforts to move it towards Jerusalem and also interior in Israel. Meanwhile, Israel has declared we are in a war, and what I describe you, it's a really war. I think that as the time is running, we see more and more things that shows us that what happened, and you mentioned as a massacre, what happened in Gaza, it's one of the worst terrible things that happened in this century by what was done by Hamas and Gaza civilian to Israeli civilian soldiers, boys and girls as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't even spoken about the hostages. Please stay with us, Eitan, because we're going to go to central Tel Aviv. We've been under a barrage of rockets here all afternoon. Our Robert Swift is there. Rob, what's happening where you are?
Laura, we've come down here to document the blood drive which is going on behind me. People have come together in order to do what they can really to help out with the situation that has unfolded over the last 4 days. But whilst we've been here on at least 3 occasions, people have had to stop what they're doing, put down what it is that they're involved in, the blood transfusions, and make their way to the bomb shelter as rocket alarms have gone off across Tel Aviv and other surrounding areas. And we have heard at least one interception in one of... Now, a little bit...
Okay, we're having... Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Rob. We've got a bit of a sound problem there. There we are. Israelis turning out, and Israelis have really come together like never before. People are donating blood, they're donating money, clothes, toys for children, everything, taking people into their homes. This country is at war, and this country is coming together. Let's go.
That's correct. That's correct. And people are coming together and just attempting to do what they can. And a little bit earlier, we spoke with the director of the hospital, who told us 2 things. One was the fact that the hospital has a large underground bunker in it, and it's just been reported that the hospital has now, for the first time in its history, moved towards, it started putting patients into the underground bunker, essentially. And the other thing that he told us is the fact that the hospital is collecting blood, not just for the injuries that it has sustained, but it is essentially looking forward, preparing for additional casualties that it expects. And the fact that patients are now being put into the bunker it indicates how seriously the situation is, and that people are expecting it to get worse. Now, Israelis in Tel Aviv and in other locations are accustomed to dealing with rocket alerts. The fact that patients are now being placed underground suggests that something larger is on the horizon.
All right, Rob, thanks very much for the swift there. Major General Eitan Dangot is with me. About the rockets, I mean, Israel has been carrying out strikes on Gaza for 48 hours now.
It's more.
More?
Yes. We are already in 72 hours.
72 hours, I apologise. They must have destroyed a great deal of Hamas's rocket capabilities. How many more rockets can they fire?
First of all, it is the beginning. And I'm really very serious. You mean for Israel, launching rockets? Yes.
Because in the past, we've had, I think in 2021, it was 10 days.
That was what we called a quick rounds, that it was clear that both sides are not coming to escalation. Here we are coming to the end game. End game, I cannot say forever, but for many years. Israel cannot continue survive as independent state with what happened on Saturday, during the Simchat Torah holiday, because we lost the safe and the insurance that we obliged to the civilian who are living around Gaza, and this is something all Israel observe. Secondly, the suffering that was around Gaza, it's something. I belong to a family which is roots coming from the Holocaust. And things that are done there bring us very close to the memories that not our generation, but the generation before. My father is a Holocaust survivor, has been faced. You can never compare it. These are animals. You cannot live as a state while state of Hamas is beside you. We cannot accept it. Secondly, it's coming and moving down the deterrence from Israel towards the area. So we are coming to a very deep moments that we have to signal again Israel will stay and we will win as a state, but not under conditions of increasing terror that it's very clear who is the master behind it. It's Iran. And who prepared Hamas for it? It's Iran and Hezbollah together. It's something we have to cut it. Much more danger now than the nuclear activities by Iran.
But some analysts are warning, some people are warning that this is exactly what Iran wants. It wants Israel to get bogged down in Gaza. We don't know if a ground offensive is a possibility. It will be fighting on one front, and as you say, opening up another front from the north. Are you worried about that?
You are right. I heard it as well, and who is telling us they are right. We have all the time to think what the enemy has planned, because we were surprised once that we paid. Even to say heavy price, it's a light thing to describe it. Secondly, we have to think all the time, every day again, and assess what is the circumstances around us. That's the way why on the military side we are working on a different way. There is no any division between Hamas and Gaza and the civilian in Gaza. There is no anymore using the words humanitarian policy. Cut of electricity, cut of water, cut of goods, cut of everything. You have to close Gaza and to bring Hamas. Besides what we are trying and destroying the state of Hamas around us, it means infrastructure, bunkers, arms, Hamas terrorists. And concerning maneuvering, I didn't say when and how. It is one thing very clear. It will take time. We will have maybe to move efforts from area to area, but on the end of this story, Hamas will lose its capacity and we cannot stay now forever the entity in Gaza. And we have to leave it to the side. The feelings of pity towards anybody in Gaza, we have to leave to the side the humanitarian threat while they are raped and killed and destroy small babies. It's something unacceptable.
No.
So there is no forgiveness forever to what has been done. And for it, you have to manage. It's not something that we know. It's very difficult will be if we are entering to a second arena. But I think that the umbrella of the United States, that message signals to Lebanon, to Iran, because Lebanon is supported by the states, if there is something, you will lose also a lot. Loss of price for Lebanon, Hezbollah and Iran will be very heavy, and now, for now, they are behaving very carefully and calculating their steps.
Yeah. Okay, Eitan Dangot, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we can go up to northern Israel now. Our Ariel Osseran is in the town of Nahariya. Ariel, hearing about rocket fire from the north, what more can you tell us?
Right, Laura, so we're just about 1 hour since the latest rocket launch, or barrage of rockets, more accurately, launched from southern Lebanon, just south of the city of Tyre, towards this area, towards the northern west part of Israel, the border communities. According to the IDF in a statement released just minutes ago, saying that 15 rockets were launched in that latest barrage. 4 of them were intercepted, 10 landed in open areas. Not quite sure what happened. The statement did not mention what happened to the 15th rocket, but indeed, in response to that, IDF responded with artillery shelling towards the origin of the fire. Now, it is believed that it is a Palestinian militia, that is a Palestinian terror group, that is behind this rocket launch. Again, it's a very tense situation here up north, given that every slight movement of Hezbollah could affect the entire campaign that's going on right now, mainly focusing on south, but basically since Saturday morning, in anticipation of the fight extending also to the northern border, the Galilee Medical Center here in Nahariya, where I'm standing right now, has begun transferring its most of its departments and patients to an underground bunker, basically an underground hospital. By the end of tomorrow, 80% of all patients are to be transferred down there, and of these patients are included 4 soldiers who were wounded yesterday in the fierce firefight along the border with Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists who infiltrated the northern border. 1 is in critical condition, 1 is in moderate condition, and the other 2 are lightly wounded. And so, an hour since the barrage of rockets, it's quiet over here, but indeed a tense quiet, as is across the Israel's northern border this evening.
We are hearing reports from inside Lebanon, Ariel, that civilians have been moving north in anticipation of some kind of action from the IDF or the IAF.
Not just moving north, there's caravans of people evacuating southern Lebanon, because the residents of southern Lebanon have a very clear memory of what happened back in 2006, the Second Lebanon War. Many parts of southern Lebanon completely destroyed, and not only Israel is anticipating the fighting reaching here with relocating the hospital down to underground bunker, but obviously also on the other side of the border, the residents of southern Lebanon anticipating that the situation will only escalate from here moving on.
All right, Ariel, thank you very much. Ariel Osseran there is in Nahariya, close to the border with Lebanon. And Major General Eitan Dangot still with me in the studio.
Yeah, I would like to add something for the evacuation of the population.
In Lebanon?
In Lebanon and also in Gaza. You see that in Gaza, one of the results that Israel is completely destroying areas, while it's clear that Hamas used them as a center of preparing the activities for Saturday, like Bet Hanun, that is very close to the border, to the fence, and like in Rimal neighborhood in Gaza, a very rich area.
This is the Beverly Hills.
Yes, of Gaza. And besides, there is leaving of the area of Gaza to another areas by population. It's a sign to Hamas, I think, by the population, what will be in about 48 hours, because no one from the international community is planning now to come Gaza as usual to save them, and it will not be allowed. This is kind of a pressure for and test for the population in Gaza towards Hamas. Secondly, in Lebanon, this...
Just a second on that, because we know the IAF bombed the Rafah crossing, which is the border with Egypt.
Nearby, not Rafah on the other side belong to Egypt, and of course with Egypt is another kind of
on the Gaza side,
relationship.
Egyptian trucks with aid were trying
to
reach Gaza, and they had to go back because of that, because Israel doesn't want that, obviously, to break the siege.
Yes, this is what Israel declare. One of the tools we are telling now in these circumstances, there is no entering to Gaza to support for giving Hamas economy. This is Hamas state. And civilians were entered, as I told you, thousands of them, cross the border and murder also, participate in this massacre. And so don't be nice for the life that families lost their whole unit of the family cabin. Secondly, with Egypt will be, it's a challenge how Egypt will accept it, how Egypt is moving ahead. And there is a partner that always, it's like a snake. It calls Qatar. Qatar, which Israel allowed them to come and to support.
Qatar, which is home of the Hamas leadership, of course.
Of course. In Qatar, you have Ania in his team, who is the outside main leadership of Hamas, besides Hamas leadership in Gaza, and beside Aruri in Beirut. And Qatar, on the other end, is using Israel for supporting Gaza, for economy to support 1,000. Now it's ended. Now it's ended also. So what is going with the population? It become a player. I mean on and circumstances that we have to tell it, but it's a part that we are not give any more any pettiness, any duty, anything by law. In Lebanon, many years it's become a sign to the pressure of the population on the southern Lebanon. The situation inside Lebanon is sensitive. The country is shocking. It's very close to a crash. Yeah. And by moving them, Hezbollah has a challenge to decide wherever it's going, and the permanent government in Lebanon now will have to calculate, even it's a government that behind it's Hamas, they have to calculate whether to do or not to do something by Hezbollah, because they lose all the United States support, which is the only source that now holding Lebanon as a state.
And just to go back to Gaza, there are American citizens among the hostages in Gaza. We know that President Biden is already under pressure from the families to rescue them. The United States has moved a huge fleet of aircraft carriers to the eastern Mediterranean. We're not seeing calls for a ceasefire from the Americans at this stage. Are you encouraged that the Americans are letting Israel handle this in how it sees fit?
I think that the United States step shows three things. First of all, it's a message for Tehran that United States is worried from what's going in the Middle East, not also towards Israel, towards all the moderate Arab blocs in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and other countries from that. Secondly, it's kind of warning Iran from the continuing going concerning the nuclear agreement and release of money or instructions that were done against Iran.
They just gave $6 billion to free 5 Americans.
But there are much more also to release now. Mm-hmm. The third issue is to give a warning to Iran by the operative level of what the carrier and others, what's going on the cooperation between IDF and CENTCOM in Qatar, that is the headquarters there.
Which is an ally of the United States.
Exactly.
So how is that?
This kind is coming. There is, I can promise you, and I know it, a very close coordination and what's going. And I think Iran, Hezbollah understand it very well. On the other, last point, please.
No problem.
Last but not least is the issue with the American hostages that have the American civil passports, let's call it, in Gaza.
So 100, just to recap, 150 people are being held.
This is the SS.
In Hamas, not just Israelis, but many other nationalities, including 10 Americans.
And I think in this case, Hamas has to decide very quick whether they are going to make a quick first step of exchanging or releasing the babies, the women, the mothers, the elders. It's unbelievable what's going down, and the foreign, of course, that holding a foreign passport, and coming to another stage, because the Hamas has a lot to lose in these circumstances. I cannot assess whether it will be or not, but I think it has more chance to be done, and Hamas probably will get on a special channels a warning from the United States and others that will be done by the United Nations representative for the Middle East.
And are you surprised that the international community isn't pushing harder for a ceasefire right now? I mean, understandably and inevitably.
That they are pushing?
Normally when Israel is striking Gaza, Israel finds itself very quickly under pressure from the international community to stop the bombing. Would you say
it's not now the situation? This time? Yeah. I think that it reminds me when I was the military secretary of the Minister of Defense in the Second Lebanon War, while Israel now, let's say now, on the Hamas state war with Israel, we have a full legitimation from the international community to reach our goals and our revenge.
Before you go, Major General, can you say something reassuring to the many people around the world and here in Israel who are watching this situation unfold, their worst nightmares coming true?
I think that Israel coming to a very sensitive moments that we has not faced only at 48 on the establishment of Israel as a state, in 73 on the Yom Kippur War when I was a child, but we are coming to the different world that is divided between terrorism and democratism in the way Israel is a flag for it. Even what's going internally in Israel and what Israel is facing and going to face in the coming days, it's another war for its independence and future living here, and make our next generation to live here without being murdering or facing a massacre like this. We will have to be very patient. We will have to be very strong. There will be up and downs, but as I told you, and the way I'm sure Israel will win.
All right, Major General Eitan Dangot, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we can go now to southern Israel. Our Owen Alterman is at the Barzillai Hospital. Owen, what is happening where you are?
Well, Laura, about 500 injured still here at the hospital and hospitalized. 2,800 have been injured since the start of the war, and of those, about 500 are still in Israeli hospitals. So I should say 500 over the course of the war have been here at Barzillai Hospital in Ashkelon, one of the closest hospitals in Israel to the border communities in Gaza. Over the course of the last few hours here, 4 huge rounds of rocket fire with very, very loud booms that we heard, and a direct hit that's visible from just outside the hospital. I put a picture on my Twitter feed if anyone would like to see the smoke coming up. It's odd, Laura, and you understand this well living here, but you drive into the city, you see the thin blue strip of the Mediterranean in the distance. There are no cars on the road. It's a beautiful day. I'm just looking out at the beautiful dusk as the sunset ends, and it's just so mind-boggling and such an enormous tragedy and such an enormous human catastrophe that just being here just brings it all into focus.
Yeah, it's really hard, Owen. It's really hard for everyone in Israel, but also the people around the world who love Israel, and Israel has many friends around the world who are sending support. And I mean, the report that our own Nicole Zedek brought to us today from Kfar Aza, the atrocities which are really shocking people around the world. I mean, Owen, in recent days we've seen, American news anchors weeping on air. We saw American admirals weeping on air. I mean, this is unprecedented, isn't it?
Yeah, Israel's hidden strength in international public opinion, or who imagined that sentence was going to come out of my mouth, has just come out from under and surfaced everywhere. I never understood how meaningful it was for buildings to be lit up until this week. And you see one after another in one world capital after another, buildings and monuments lit up, including the stunning scene from Paris of what looked like tens of thousands of people singing the Israeli national anthem Hatikva and looking out at the Eiffel Tower lit up. I never understood how meaningful that was until this week, but you're certainly seeing that come from every quarter. I by the way, a rough estimate that video and that broadcast by Nicole has probably tens of millions of views, if not even more, all over the world. People are seeing what this country has faced. They're seeing what this country is doing to face it. By the way, around me are volunteers who have come to help at this hospital over the course of the last few days, volunteers who have brought food to the staff and the volunteers here over the last few days. So just another place where Israelis are stepping up and doing what they can to help the war effort in every way possible.
Yeah, this is a country very much at war, and it's just the beginning, as people keep telling us. Owen, thank you. Owen Alterman there. Down at Brazil. I think we can go to the US now to talk more about international support. No, we cannot. So let's just do you a recap then of what we know so far. Hamas terrorists beheaded babies. That's a headline I never thought I would have to say during my career, but that is where we are. Hamas terrorists beheaded babies. They murdered 40 babies during a bloody massacre in the southern Israeli village of Kfar. Our own reporter Nicole Zedek saw for herself the results. Entire families were burned alive in their homes. They were sheltering in the bomb shelters that Israeli homes have to deal with rocket fire. They were there. Their homes were built alive. Children shot, old people shot, people together murdered, and I haven't even spoken very much about one of the most painful things for Israelis right now, and that is that 150 hostages, including many children, are being held right now in Gaza. Of course, their families don't know if they're alive or dead, how they're being treated. It is an unfathomable nightmare for any human being around the world to imagine that, not knowing what has happened to your family. 260 young people at least murdered while they were at a music festival that is contributing to a large part of the death toll. This country is really going through something now that it has never been through before, and as everyone knows, this is a country that has had to fight for its survival every step of the way. Terrorism, wars, invasions by its neighbours. This, though, is something else on a whole new level psychologically that people are having to deal with. But this country is very much coming together to stay together, to be resilient, to face what is in front of us. And that is the situation. And I'm here in Tel Aviv. I can tell you we've been running to the shelters throughout the day, rockets fired constantly, and it's very difficult. And there is a lot to deal with. And we understand that people are really having to go through a great deal right now. Let's talk a bit more about military strategy. Eitan Dangot. In terms of wiping out Hamas, what does that look like? We know that they've killed the two top Hamas commanders, I believe. They have confirmation of that.
We succeed. We killed Minister of Economy.
Yes.
And one of the members that is very close to the committee around Sinwar, the leader of Gaza. But it's a sign that we are in a circle around the leadership of Hamas, leadership of civilian. The head is Sinwar, which is deep involved in what happened, and also those who are the main murderers that are responsible for sending these terrorists. And also, in my opinion, and as I know the system here, those who are not living in Israel, in Gaza as well, like Aruri, Ania in Qatar, has to be, and they're worried. That's the reason that Ania escaped to Lebanon.
Just a reminder, Qatar is a non-NATO member US ally. President Biden recently upgraded that country's status. Qatar is home to the Hamas leadership.
Yes.
Ismail Haniyeh lives in luxury in Qatar. while his people are in Gaza.
Qatar,
so this is a question that the Americans must be looking at, surely.
I think that it's not the first time.
This is a country that hosted the World Cup. It's
Of course. But I would like to share with you my experience. When I was in my function as a military secretary to 3 ministers of defense, and was responsible for the coordinator of the government activities in West Bank and around Gaza, I would share with you that a lot of meetings that I had with high officials from the States, United States, very close to the fact that Qatar policy always has 2 heads of the snakes from both sides, and they are playing with it. But above all, no one has doubt that Qatar is a radical country which support with money the radical movements like Hamas, and I don't like, and I didn't like in the past, to play the game with Qatar as the Israeli government played here. I would not allow Qatar to come here with suitcase full with cash money to give each civilian in Gaza. They will try to be like the coordinator between Gaza, sometimes Hamas and Israel. And on the other hand, as you mentioned, Ania is there. From there, they are letting him to take a plane to move to Lebanon to meet Hezbollah and Iranian. The policy of United States is much more sensitive and careful because they have to hold Qatar close to them by understanding that Qatar is always under suspicion. Israel own nothing to Qatar. And Israel also, when it changed the policy towards Hamas after it happened, has to make clear to Qatar on the same time. I would tell you that Israel should, not now, not immediately with emotion, test its policy towards activities against Hamas figures in Lebanon and in Qatar as well. In my opinion, those who are living in Qatar, like Ania and the others, are death figures. They should find themselves in the timing that we will choose, not belong to this earth. They are not have the rights to be considered as a human being. And Qatar should decide where they are, even if Israel will pay to Qatar, reducing of the relationship. I don't care for it.
Turkey, of course, also hosts.
Turkey has already changed besides the relationship. Turkey is making more official active towards the PA, the Palestinian authorities. Turkey, the president is talking with Israel. I think that with Turkey, there is a move on 60 degrees to another direction. And Erdogan has announced, came to conclusion very quick that its policy brings Turkey to problems. And one of the things is in a process of changing. But Qatar is still the sponsor of Hamas state, Hamas movement, Hamas killers, and we cannot accept it anymore.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you as well. We've just got a bit of news on news in from IDF spokes saying that tanks attacked observation posts of the terrorist group Hezbollah in response to.
I think 2 posts were attacked on the west area.
2 posts, that's right.
It shows you what I just described before. Israel and Hamas are entering to narrow corridor, but still they are not running inside. They are moving step by step towards maybe escalation, but carefully. We give each side the opportunity to come down ground from the ladder much more quicker than it looks in the field. So even Hamas, 14 rockets in the West as a reaction to what Israel made yesterday or attack Hamas, and now Israel as a response attack to Hamas post. It's symbols of numbers. To Hezbollah's post on the bat. By choosing these targets, Israel make message also to Hamas. You are responsible for anything that's going in this area. We are not looking to find whether it's Palestinian cabin or a Hamas cabin in Lebanon or Hezbollah. Everything will be respond towards Hezbollah.
Okay. Can I ask you very, very quickly, so we're running out of time, the Palestinians are divided, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. Will this bring them together?
No. I think you heard the statement of Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, that on the Quran, there is no doubt that murdering babies, families, it's not something that the Quran is supported.
That was Mansour Abbas.
No, I mean also Abu Mazen. I read them. Mansour Abbas said it today.
Said it, yeah.
But yesterday was the PA statement, and I think that Israel has to come back to the Palestinian Authority.
Right. Thank you. We're taking a short break. Stay with us. Our coverage continues here on I-24 News.
Strictly Security, your weekly look into security, intelligence, and strategic affairs. Our team brings the latest on the major international conflicts, analysis of the major security issues right here in the Middle East and around the globe. Join us for a close look at innovative military technology and get up to speed with what's happening in cyberspace.